I've always been drawn to the wild, to the untamed heart of nature that lies hidden within the dense forest. So, it was no surprise that I found myself deep in the woods, setting up my campsite beneath the shadowy canopy of ancient trees. My tent stood like a lone sentinel, providing shelter from the elements as I embarked on my solo camping adventure. The first night was peaceful, the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl lulling me into a comfortable slumber. But as the days turned to nights, an unsettling feeling began to take root within me. It was the thunder that set the stage for the eerie events that would follow. The rumbling echoed through the forest, shaking the ground beneath my sleeping bag. It was on the second night that I heard it, a faint sound, like a branch breaking underfoot. My senses went on high alert as I strained to hear more. Was it just an animal or something else? I brushed it off, convincing myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Yet, the unease remained, lingering in the corners of my mind like a shadow. The third night brought with it a chilling scream that sliced through the air, piercing the stillness of the forest. My heart raced as I bolted upright in my tent, my breath catching in my throat. My flashlight shook in my trembling hand as I peered out into the inky darkness. But there was nothing, no sign of what could have produced such a bone-chilling sound. Each night, the unknown sounds grew more insistent, more haunting. I felt like I was being watched, a sensation that crawled over my skin like a million tiny insects. As I lay in my tent, the canvas walls separating me from the enigmatic forest, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beyond my vision. It was on the fifth night that I saw it, a fleeting glimpse of movement at the edge of the trees. My heart pounded in my chest as I strained my eyes, trying to make out what it was. The moonlight cast eerie shadows, distorting the shapes of the trees and shrubs. And then, I saw it again, a dark figure, almost human-like, darting between the trees. I stumbled out of my tent, my flashlight casting a weak beam that barely penetrated the suffocating darkness. The forest seemed to hold its breath, a hushed tension hanging in the air. I called out, my voice wavering, but there was no response. Only silence, broken by the distant sound of a twig snapping underfoot. My mind raced with possibilities. Was it an animal, a fellow camper, or something else entirely? The nights had become a maddening cycle of fear and uncertainty, the events taking on a nightmarish quality that left me on edge. And as the moon waxed and waned, so did my sanity, my thoughts consumed by the mysterious presence that seemed to follow my every move. The nights grew colder and darker, the forest cloaked in an otherworldly stillness that sent shivers down my spine. I tried to convince myself that it was all in my head, that my imagination was running wild in the solitude of the woods. But the unease persisted, a gnawing sensation that refused to be ignored. With every passing night, the presence outside my tent seemed to draw closer, its movements more deliberate, its intentions more ominous. I could no longer brush off the signs, the broken twigs, the faint rustling, and the glimpses of shadows that danced at the periphery of my vision. My sleep became fractured, punctuated by nightmares and the ever-present fear of the unknown. One night, as I lay in my tent, a brilliant flash of lightning illuminated the forest. In that fleeting moment of illumination, I saw him again, the figure, standing just beyond the tree line, his eyes gleaming like twin points of obsidian in the darkness. The image was seared into my mind, a haunting snapshot that refused to fade. I couldn't bear the uncertainty any longer. Fueled by a mixture of fear and determination, I mustered the courage to venture outside my tent. The moon hung like a cold, pale coin in the sky, casting feeble light on the forest floor. Armed with my flashlight, I stepped into the unknown, heart pounding in my chest. I moved cautiously, my senses on high alert, every rustle of leaves echoing like a distant scream in my ears. The forest seemed to hold its breath, as if the very air was charged with an eerie energy. I called out, my voice quivering, demanding an answer from the shadows that seemed to close in around me. And then, I heard it, a whisper, barely audible, carried on the wind. My name, spoken in a voice that sent a chill down my spine. Panic surged within me, and I turned to flee, my footsteps crunching on the forest floor. But as I ran, the sound of footsteps echoed mine, growing louder and more rapid. I stumbled through the underbrush, heart pounding like a drum in my chest, the sense of being pursued driving me to push my body to its limits. Adrenaline surged through my veins, my breath ragged, and my flashlight swinging wildly. The moonlight danced through the trees, casting eerie patterns that seemed to taunt me. Finally, I burst through the trees and into a small clearing, my chest heaving as I scanned my surroundings. There, at the edge of the clearing, stood an odd camping guy. His eyes glinted in the moonlight, fixing me with an inscrutable gaze. Fear and defiance warred within me, my mind a tumultuous storm of emotions. I demanded answers, my voice shaky but determined. And then, he spoke to me, his voice tinged with regret and apology. He explained that he hadn't meant to scare me, that he was just lost in the woods, searching for something he couldn't quite define. He expressed his sincere apologies for causing me fear and assured me that he meant no harm. As dawn broke on the horizon, the odd camping guy's presence seemed to dissipate, leaving behind a sense of peace and understanding. The forest came alive once more, the symphony of nature's sounds returning to fill the air. I stood in the clearing, a mixture of awe and wonder coursing through me. With newfound clarity, I made my way back to my campsite, the weight of fear lifted from my shoulders. The nights were no longer haunted by the unknown presence, but rather embraced by the memory of the odd camping guy who had been lost and seeking connection. And as I packed my belongings to leave, I felt a sense of gratitude for the experiences that had transformed a simple camping trip into a journey of empathy and discovery. The wind howled through the dense trees, creating an eerie symphony that sent shivers down my spine. My friends and I had embarked on a camping trip deep into the heart of the wilderness, hoping for a weekend of adventure and relaxation. Little did we know, our journey was about to take a terrifying turn. We set up our tents in a clearing surrounded by towering trees that seemed to reach for the sky. The crackling campfire provided a flickering warmth against the encroaching darkness, but even its glow couldn't dispel the feeling of unease that settled over us. As the night grew deeper, our laughter and jokes faded into a tense silence. I could sense the uneasiness in the air as we huddled around the fire, our eyes darting nervously at every rustling leaf. The forest seemed to come alive with mysterious sounds, distant howls, twigs snapping, and the whisper of the wind through the leaves. We tried to brush it off as typical forest noises, but the unease only grew stronger. One of my friends, Alex, couldn't shake off the feeling that we were being watched. He kept glancing over his shoulder into the shadows, his face pale in the flickering firelight. "Did you hear that?" he finally whispered, his voice trembling. The rest of us strained our ears, hearing nothing but the eerie symphony of the night. "It's just your imagination, Alex," I reassured him, though I couldn't deny the unsettling feeling that had settled in my own gut. As the night wore on, we retired to our tents, hoping that sleep would offer an escape from the unsettling atmosphere. I lay in my sleeping bag, staring at the fabric above me, every rustling leaf magnified into a potential threat. Just as I was beginning to drift off, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. My heart raced as I scrambled out of my tent, my friends emerging from their shelters in a panic. We shone our flashlights into the darkness, searching for the source of the scream, but all we found were swaying trees and the chilling howl of the wind. We exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what we had just witnessed. The scream continued to echo in our ears, growing fainter until it disappeared completely. We debated packing up and leaving right then and there, but we ultimately decided to stay put until morning. Our tents felt more like flimsy barriers against an unknown terror than safe havens. As the hours ticked by, the darkness seemed to press in around us, suffocating and relentless. We huddled together around the dying campfire, our faces pale and eyes wide with fear. Each distant sound sent a jolt of anxiety through us, and the night felt endless, a nightmarish eternity in the heart of the wilderness. But dawn eventually broke, the first hints of sunlight dispelling the lingering darkness. Exhausted and shaken, we emerged from our tents, eager to escape the haunting night. Though we never discovered the source of the scream or the unsettling feeling that had gripped us, we wasted no time in packing up our campsite and retreating from the woods. As we left the clearing, I couldn't help but cast a last glance over my shoulder, half expecting to catch a glimpse of something lurking in the shadows. The memory of that night would forever be etched into our minds, a chilling reminder that even in the heart of nature's beauty, darkness and terror could still find their way in. We walked for what felt like miles, the weight of the previous night's terror still heavy on our minds. The once familiar trail seemed foreign, the trees casting elongated shadows that seemed to reach out for us. Every snap of a twig or rustle of leaves made us jump, our nerves on edge from the night's ordeal. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, its warm rays began to dissipate the lingering fear that had settled over us. We stumbled upon a small stream, its gentle gurgle a soothing contrast to the night's haunting sounds. The water offered a sense of clarity, washing away the lingering dread that clung to us like a suffocating fog. Determined to find solace in the daylight, we continued on our trek, our conversation a mix of nervous laughter and cautious observation of our surroundings. We tried to rationalize the events of the previous night, attributing the scream to a distant animal or trick of the wind. But no amount of logic could fully erase the unease we felt. As the day wore on, we reached a stunning overlook that offered a breathtaking view of the wilderness below. The vast expanse of untouched nature stretched out before us, a reminder that the forest held both beauty and danger in equal measure. We sat down to rest, allowing the tranquility of the scene to calm our racing hearts. However, even in the midst of the breathtaking landscape, a sense of unease still lingered. It was as though the forest itself held a secret, an ancient knowledge that we were not meant to comprehend. Our unease was palpable, a collective feeling that had bonded us in the face of the unknown. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, we made the decision to head back to civilization. Our trek back to the trailhead was marked by a newfound sense of urgency, our footsteps quickened by the desire to escape the forest's clutches. The trees seemed to close in around us, a reminder that we were intruders in their domain. Finally, we emerged from the dense woods and into the clearing where our journey had begun. The sight of our cars offered a sense of relief and freedom, a reminder that we had survived the haunting night and its lingering echoes. Though the memory of that camping trip would forever be etched in our minds, we were grateful to return to the familiarity and safety of modern life. As we drove away from the wilderness, a sense of closure settled over us. The forest had tested our courage and resilience, forcing us to confront the darkness that could lurk beneath even the most serene exterior. While we may never fully understand the events of that night, we had emerged from the experience stronger and more connected than before. The memory of that camping trip would serve as a constant reminder of the thin veil that separates the known from the unknown, the beauty of nature from the primal fears that lie beneath the surface. And while we may have left the forest behind, its haunting echoes would forever be etched into our hearts, a reminder that sometimes the scariest things are not always what we can see, but what we can't.